Did you see that video I made a few days ago at my store where I was bringing up articles from this last couple of weeks and then showing how they were all being recycled from 4 or 5 years ago?
Absolutely.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
If you remember, I made a comment on one of your YouTube videos saying that they're selectively going through your material. So somebody is garnishing your material on top of whatever you're producing. So that's what I meant. There is no, how do you say it, intellectual property rights anymore. It seems everything's up for grabs.
Mm-hmm. But
so that's
we're looking at the mainstream.
What's happened?
We're looking at the mainstream media, the Toronto Sun, Star. They say this number with numbers, 300 whatever Canadians are filing for. Then we made the same video 4 years, 11 months ago. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yep, and I've been going through some files, and exactly what we're experiencing now is exactly the same as what we were experiencing in 1986. And I look at it now like our banks here are sitting here going, no, we're not going to reduce the interest rates. And yet I looked at the interest rates back in 1986 and they were 6.9%. And yet people were still paying off their mortgages and all the rest of it. But back then, mortgages were what, 100,000?
Wages and incomes were tied to real estate prices.
And that's what I mean. And now everything's blown out like you wouldn't believe it. You only have to look at a house.
Yeah, that same $100,000 property in Australia, I don't have to see it. It's already $2.3 million.
Exactly. And then you get a 30-year loan and you're paying for it for the rest of your life. So, you know, and on top of that, everything's taxed. Everything. So the minute you walk out the door, you pay a tax. You pay tax on your house. You pay tax on the car. You pay tax on the fuel. You go stop at the shop. You pay tax on the groceries you buy. Everything is taxed to hell. And yet where are all this money going?
Well, it's going to fund 1 out of 4 Canadians that work for the government now.
Well, in Australia, it's funding every one of our politicians with a $9,500 pay rise.
Mm-hmm.
So they can give themselves pay rises, and they've just given all the childcare subsidies out again. So all childcare centres are now getting a 15% pay rise.
Can I ask a question about Australia? Are the politicians and people that work for the government there Australian, or is it like Canada, where like a lot of our mayors now in major cities are not even Canadian and they've just been here a couple of years and like?
Well, from what I can gather, I would say about 75% of our government would be Australian born, because we had this same question about 10 years ago when one of our politicians got reprimanded because they weren't an Australian citizen. So all that came to light probably about 10 years ago when they were actually screening politicians.
Okay.
But I don't know if it happens now because we're so multicultural.
Right.
Because the person that creates so much drama in our politics is Senator Alex, Senator Rennick, and Pauline Hanson. They're the ones that stand up and are actually trying to do something for Australians by pointing out the corruption of our government and what they're doing. But everyone dismisses them because they have a history where they've been called racist, because all they want is better life for Australians that are here. And yet we're importing 1 million people every year to come and live here, and we're getting pushed out. It's no longer Australian, if you know what I mean. You walk down the streets and there is a variety of people. Now, I'm not racist in any way, shape or form, but when you get looked sideways by a visitor in our country and then they start hurling abuse at you, you seem to think, why are you here? If you hate this place so much, why are you here taking resources from us? You get all the handouts, you get all the housing, you get everything you need, and yet you're still complaining. And there's people like you and me that are homeless with families living in their cars and in tents that are Australian born, and they're not getting helped at all.
Yes, and I did bring up quite a few videos, even during trends in the housing market. Brought up quite a few short videos too, where I would say, "Why do people come here to hate us? I don't understand. Like, I'm not even a Canadian. I'm a Portuguese. I'm a Portuguese citizen. I have my passport, my citizenship card. Where the hell is it? I don't know if I have my wallet on me. My citizenship card, everything, and I'm hated. So it's select immigrants that hate the people of the country, right? So let me open this up real quick, if that's okay. Here it is, right here. I made a video 4 years, 9 months ago. Will Australia exist in 30 years? And the video is maybe by name or just a bit when the good life used to be. So there's a video right there. Will Australia? That's a video I made, right there. So.
And I think I'm on one of your podcasts where you asked me that question directly. And I said to you, it's not the Australia that I remember. It hasn't been the Australia I remembered for at least 10 years. And that's all because of mass immigration, because the government believes the more people here, the better our chances are of building our economy, which is total bullshit. You don't need people to build an economy. You need infrastructure. And you need to be leading the people in that direction.
But they're not doing any of that.
Grow.
They can't even maintain the infrastructure. Never mind build it.
Well, that's because they're taking too many private jets to go over to these corporate meetings, especially the WEF and all the rest of it, to go and shake hands, deciding Australians' future. Everyone wants to have freedom in their lifestyles and to be able to afford a comfortable life. But how many people get that opportunity? And again, it's not just based on your race. Sometimes you can be pulled out just because of your name. So just say you have a foreign name. Sometimes you get rejected just because of your name. And this is how it works in some businesses. Like, when you're doing applications for jobs, they don't read your resume anymore. They judge you by your name and your age. They don't care about what your qualifications are. So this is the double standards we keep talking about when we're losing our jobs. So, again, what does it mean to be Australian now?
Hold on. I got a joke for you. Are you ready for this? Articles right here. Australia being turned into the 51st U.S. state, says ex-prime minister. You wish. Hold on. You wish, Australia. You wish you had a Bill of Rights. You wish you had a constitution for the people, by the people. You wish you had the right to bear arms to protect your property. You wish you became the 51st state of America. Because then you could be put in laws the next day to sweep across the country and clean out any eradication and cancer that's destroying your society. Australia wishes they were the 51st state of America, because then they could get their country. They have a chance to get their country back. Sorry, you could go ahead and debunk me if you'd like, or say, because you're in Australia.
I was going to say that's a very interesting statement, but me personally, I don't want to see that, because it takes us back to where we were. If you remember back in 1985, after the Port Arthur massacre, that's when we handed in all our guns. We were forced to. And even that was a psyop. It's just like the Trump shooter. That was all planned and prepared.
100%.
So, again, and that was to get Australians to hand in their guns. So 34 people had to lose their lives. That was all planned by the government, just so that we can get this buyback scheme. So Australians have no protection. And I'm fearing that, it's going to become a bit like the UK, where, as you said, knife crimes are increasing, but we do have an influx now of more weapons coming into the country, and this is what they're trying to crack down on. And again, where do the weapons come from? The migrants.
Criminals use weapons.
Bringing them in.
99% of gun violence is used by is that obviously goes sideways is by criminals. It's not by the law-abiding citizen, right?
Or if not, the bikie gangs, or the ones that are controlling the drugs.
You guys still have biker gangs in Australia?
Oh shit, yeah.
I think we're fizzling out here
Comancheros,
big time.
banditos.
Oh no, here it's different.
There's
In
what?
Canada, I think the Somalian gangs have taken over in Alberta, and I think
Well,
the
what?
Somalian gangs are pretty big, and I think it was the Ethiopian gangs now are getting big in other regions of Canada. Then you have the Chinese gangs in Vancouver and in Toronto, and then you got like it's not too much of a biker thing. That was in the 60s, 70s, maybe up until the 90s.
We still do have them because there's still a lot of the underbelly crimes going on here, and it's all vengeance. If one gang member gets done, then they want vengeance on another one. But again, some of these gangs are multicultural, like you say. There is a couple of really nasty ones that only live a couple of suburbs away from me, and they all have their little houses that they go and hang out in, but they get raided quite often. So
Mm-hmm.
they're kept on their toes too.
Okay. Okay.
So, but
I'm not saying
it's
there's no
not as
biker
bad.
gangs in Canada. I'm not saying there's no biker.
Mm,
There are. It wasn't. It's not as prevalent as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, right?
mm, mm. But there's always been a culture around bikes in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
always. And I don't think that's going to discontinue too quickly.
Right.
But um, again, look, I, I see people all the time and they're just so on edge, you know. You only have to look at them sideways and they want to come at you. So this is what's happening at the moment is, as you said, we're being influxed by so much information, and all of this information is turning everyone against each other. This is
Mm-hmm.
the sad point, is that we see all the violence, we see all the crimes, we see all the war, and they want us to form an opinion. And that opinion is based on how we see our brothers and sisters around the world.